Hey everyone, so this in part was inspired by a conversation I had with the NZHSP Facebook group members yesterday at a similar time of night. So for us in New Zealand, it's now coming up to just after 10 o'clock at night. For many of us that are locked down at home, still trying to maintain our jobs and our businesses, this seems to be one of the times of the day where we're actually able to do anything with the kids in bed, our partners safely tucked away either watching Netflix or getting ready for bed. This is a time where we can actually hone in and do what it is we need to do. So I took the opportunity, based on that conversation yesterday, to reach out to a good friend of mine, Kirsty, who is based in the UK and has been successfully running a podcast series for, a couple of years at least. It's called the Travelling Ergonomist. Kirsty, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry you're up so late.
No, that's okay. It's all good. Like, this is like I say, it's becoming quite normal. So I just kind of thought, well, who do I know in the UK that would be really good to talk to right now? And it was an obvious answer to me. I guess maybe we should start off by giving you a chance to introduce yourself, Kirsty, just to let people know who you are. And I'm really pleased to say you've been a long-standing member of NZHSP and a big supporter of it. So how about we hear a little bit more about you?
Absolutely. Thanks, Matt. Absolutely a supporter of what you guys are doing. I follow along the Facebook threads as much as I can, with all the time difference and things, but there's always such interesting conversations that come in. And I learn a lot because I'm not specifically from the health and safety world, but I dip in and out of it with what I do. So I'm the Travelling Ergonomist. I started my business just over 2 years ago now, but I've been in the ergonomics industry for 10 years. And in that time, I've traveled all around the world. So obviously to Europe, the Middle East, the US, South Africa, and then I moved to Australia for 2 years as well, most recently, and spent a lot of time in Australia and New Zealand. So I've traveled the world and I've been able to help businesses with their corporate ergonomics programs. And that could mean anything from assessments to all the way up to leadership training and how to implement an ergonomics program. And now I guess it's all changing and we're starting to, adapt to how we do things with the current situation at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. Before we went online live now, I was asking you about how are things in the UK, and obviously it would be interesting for everyone really to hear how it is on the other side of the earth.
So I guess for me personally, I've been quite used to working from different environments for quite some time now, and at home. So I've been able to kind of get a routine at home done for the last 2 years. So for me, working at home and being here hasn't felt that different or awkward in my general routine. Obviously, I'm not in and out of London. I'm not traveling as much as at all at the moment. So that's a bit weird for me because I typically travel at least once a week somewhere in the world. So that's weird. But in terms of working from home, nothing's really changed. In terms of the UK, we've certainly seen some changes. This is our second week of lockdown, which means we're only allowed out for groceries, to go to the pharmacy, and for one walk a day outside or a run outside. And so that's been a bit of a strange transition. I can't go and see my friends. I can't go and see my dad, who doesn't live here with us. Can't see my brother, who's up north. So that's a little bit weird.
Yeah, and it's same for us. So we've just wrapped up our first week of the full lockdown. We had a couple of days where we were kind of primed and informed that look, we're going into the lockdown stage now. But it's certainly a weird thing to try and adapt to, and it sounds like perhaps the message hasn't got through to everyone back in the UK in terms of how important it is. Yeah.
Unfortunately, we have some, I don't know what the word is, maybe some numpties in this country. That's the safest word I can use right now, who just aren't taking this seriously enough. And, I was saying to you before, there's been some instances where people are having barbecues at home and bringing their family and friends round. People are, trying to get into parks and have mini barbecues and parties and get-togethers. And it's a real shame because you've got people like me and you and my friends who are really trying hard to stay home and only go out for the necessities because we feel it's so important for the health and safety of our family and friends and others. It's a shame that there are some individuals who are not taking it seriously. I don't know if I could say that it's actually due to even how the government has run this situation. I think our government is doing as good a job as it possibly can do, and I don't think anybody could do anything better or worse. So I think it just comes down to there are some individuals who just don't get it at the moment.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That definitely makes sense. Look, for those who have just joined this live broadcast, we're joined this evening with Kirsty. She is well known from the traveling. Now I say ergonomist. I've just noticed you say ergonomist. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we're going on there, but yeah. So I've been fortunate enough to know Kirsty for the last year at least. We did well, she interviewed me probably this time last year. It was a great experience.
Yeah.
It's really nice to return the favor. So for those tuning in live at the moment, please feel free to ask questions of Kirsty. She really is a guru when it comes to ergonomics in the workplace. Obviously, at the moment, many of us, the workplace is currently at home. So I guess in terms of, I was going to ask you about what the impact has had on you and your work life, but it sounds like it's still pretty much business as usual. You've been based at home, but obviously the traveling side of things has been kind of significantly limited. I'm kind of a similar situation where I've become quite used to being able to jump on a flight all around New Zealand, and it's been quite consistent where at least one day a week I'm over in Auckland or Wellington or down south. So it has been a bit weird to be home base for this length of time. It's a weird feeling, isn't it? It's I don't know.
It is. It's for you and me. It's weird. So my friends don't get it. They don't travel that often, or certainly not as much as we travel. And so, honestly, for me to not have been on a flight for over 3 weeks now is very odd. And particularly because when I get on a plane, that's my kind of 1 or 2 hours to rejuvenate and relax. I really thrive being on a plane and flying. So that's a bit of a transition, but it's all good. First world problems.
Yeah, no, right. Yeah, and hopefully it will be temporary. So in terms of, because I'll let everyone know that obviously you have just released some pretty exciting online training, and from that we'll talk more about that in a moment. But in terms of good practice, ergonomic setup at home, what would be some of the top tips that you would recommend people consider and become used to now that we are in this new workspace?
It's a very interesting time at the moment. With this transition, I think one of the first things I would say is for people to just not panic, not worry, and kind of get into your own personal routine working from home. I've been doing working from home for definitely 2 years in my business, but even more so, with the other businesses I worked with, I was able to work from home and work flexibly. So it didn't take me overnight to figure out this routine and how to set up my workstation. It took me a few weeks. So I would say don't panic, don't go and panic buy ergonomic equipment, because half of it isn't ergonomic and it needs some training. So, just don't panic, just get into your natural rhythm and get into where you can find a space in the house to find a spot. I think that would be my first piece of advice.
Yeah, no, and I actually really appreciate what you've just said there too, in terms of keeping things probably in perspective. And it's something that our health and safety regulator here, they've just released some guidance on what their response to all of this will be and is. And one of the key pieces around working from home is that, look, we'll take a pragmatic approach, because obviously this is an unusual circumstance. We can't expect your employers to be on the ball with this situation at the moment. The onus is on the individuals to take responsibility of their own health and well-being in their new work environment, but also that a lot of the aches and pains tend to take a long time to develop. Ideally, this will be a short-term situation, so don't lose sleep over it. But I think it's still worthwhile getting some of the basics. The level of awareness around that, I think, is certainly still a valuable piece, which we'll explore a little bit more on. But then you also mentioned that some of the products, or perhaps many of the products that have been flaunted on Facebook advertising and Instagram. I see it all the time because I've been Googling it, and obviously suddenly my feed is full of it. And I look at it and I kind of question a lot of the stuff that, from my perspective, I just think that doesn't look sound to me at all. So is that actually the case? Is it the market's been flooded with crap, basically?
Oh, honestly, utter crap. There is, this is not a new thing, by the way. There has been utter rubbish out on the market for years and years, but now because of the home working situation, I think people are kind of preying on the vulnerable, preying on people who maybe are not as educated as me and you are in terms of ergonomic setup and health and safety. And so you see something that says the word ergonomic and you think, oh, that sounds good. I'll get that, and it'll make me healthy. And it might a little bit, but you could possibly buy a better product for the same price. It's going to even improve your health even more and productivity. So honestly, I would say, I wouldn't want to say that all Facebook advertising, all advertising of products is bad. Of course, it's not. But you just have to be really educated on what you are buying, because if you buy the wrong thing, genuinely it could actually make your problems worse and your issues worse as well.
Yep, definitely. I've seen some good examples where images of people using textbooks and odds and sods around the house to try and get the right types of heights of the desktops and bits like that. Is that something that you would probably recommend, at least in the interim?
Absolutely. As I said, I think so. There's the biggest thing to get right at the moment is to get your laptop or computer at a proper height for you, because if you're using your laptop as it is with no other accessories, that's going to start to drive your posture in an awkward position. So if you can get your laptop up to eye level, like I am right now, mine's on a laptop stand, and add a keyboard and mouse so that you can bring your keyboard and mouse close to you, that's the most minimal and cost-effective thing you can set up. And ideally, you want a laptop stand, but if you don't have the budget or you can't get hold of a laptop stand, you can literally get a box or a bunch of books and lift that laptop up. That doesn't matter at all. Just make sure that it is at eye level and you can get yourself a keyboard and mouse. I would say that's the very least. I would say the minimum that I would recommend for someone right now.
Cool. No, that's good to know. I think, and I'm sure people may correct me, but at the moment, our ability to buy any new equipment or materials is extremely limited. So, but there are rumors that some of the retail stores are going to be able to start selling products that are considered emergency type or critical type items. Maybe eventually that might open up to remote keyboards and mouses. You never know. Yeah, hopefully. Awesome. No, that's really good advice. Thank you. And then, so in terms of the new training, the online training that you have launched, do you want to tell us a little bit about that? Perfect timing, by the way. It's great.
Yeah, thank you. So last year when I was kind of second year into my business, and I thought, you know what, I get to see and work with amazing businesses day in, day out, but I only have a sort of certain amount of time per day. So I have, kind of a 9 to 5 situation where I can impart my knowledge and my expertise to a business or employees. And I thought, I want to get to a wider audience, and how can I possibly do that the easiest way, I guess. And so I thought, well, whatever I normally say to someone in that day, why don't I just say that and film it and create a course around it? So I've created a course that has video modules where you can just learn. It's a self-paced course. You have access to it for 12 months, and you can learn all about ergonomics, workstation setup, your body, how to get your body into a neutral posture. So you have that as the main kind of course content. But actually then I thought, well, why don't we create a community around this? Because, some people might have bought a mouse and go, this is the worst mouse I've ever bought, and tell us why it's a bad mouse. And then there'll be other people who say, this is the best mouse I've ever bought, and tell us why it's a good mouse. So we can start to, share each other's stories and just build a community, because, so many people are working on devices right now. None of us know what we're doing. So let's start talking about that in a more well-formatted way.
Awesome. I love that. And it's actually really perfect timing for the question that came through on the Facebook feed as well. So we've got an individual, Magdalene, I hope I've pronounced that right. The question is, when I get back to work, I've been assigned to set up an ergonomic self-assessment for the office-based staff, and then do a follow-up assessment to see if their self-assessment was done correctly. I will be dealing with people who have worked there for over 2 years and are not ideally open to change and or extra work. Office furniture is questionable anyway. So my question is, how could I approach this with success?
So if I'm understanding correctly, when we go back to the office, they're going to be issuing self-assessments to people, and then they're going to be having to do follow-ups afterwards.
Yeah.
Good question.
Yeah.
It's a difficult one. I think self-assessments sometimes for me are a bit dubious because they're a self-assessment, and not everybody's educated enough to really self-assess their situation. So I would say, along with that self-assessment, to provide them with the knowledge and expertise. So I would say do a group webinar with everybody. So give them 30 minutes of knowledge, how to set up your workstation, what to think about, how to move, when to move, those kind of things. For 20 to 30 minutes, no more. Open it up to questions, and that then gives people the real background knowledge as to why or how the self-assessment then works. It's all well and good saying, does your chair adjust correctly? Well, what does correctly mean?
Yep.
So I think it's about, alongside the self-assessments, do a couple of webinars, get people educated on everything, get them to do the self-assessments, get those in. Depending on what they're using, I would honestly suggest that you steer clear of paperwork and get yourself some kind of software to manage that for you, because you'll be able to understand the data much quicker. And in terms of follow-up assessments, I would then start to prioritize people. So I personally would prioritize pregnant women or people who have just come back from maternity leave, and I'd prioritize people who have suggested that they've got some kind of serious injury or discomfort, because those are the ones we want to nip in the bud, and we don't want them getting any worse.
Yeah, brilliant. It's really great advice. I also think how valuable it is to have the input from the team, probably even, as you mentioned before, releasing a self-assessment form, just to ensure that there's some basic knowledge and understanding, but probably also to ensure that the questions that are being asked actually have any value. Because what you just suggested there, it reminds me of the last interview we just did with Andrew Stone from Checkmate New Zealand. His point was exactly the same. Is like they've got this really cool product that deals with turning a standard operating procedure into a simple electronic checklist on your phone, and how that process itself has enabled the teams to go, actually, you know what, that question is completely so ambiguous that it has no value, and let's actually start asking some real questions, which will then lead to getting some real data, and real understanding of what it is we do.
I think that's a great idea. I think the more you can integrate people and the team into your processes, honestly, the better it's going to succeed. Because if you just force these self-assessments on people, number one, they might not even do them because they'll see it as a chore and it's not going to be helpful. And number two, if genuinely the questions are not helpful and they frustrate people, well, you're not going to get the best information anyway. So integrate everyone. Yes, you're going to have opinions from people that you might not want, but I think all opinions are helpful to an extent, and they're really going to drive where your process goes. Definitely.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, that's such good information. And I also think what would be useful, particularly to the person that's asked that question, I'm sure to lots of others as well, who will be trying to grasp the concept of ergonomics and the basics of it, is that I would be strongly recommending people just to go and take advantage of your online learning. At least then those decision makers and those that have been tasked to lead that process in their workplace have got some of the basic knowledge from your training, and then can then take that to their team. So
Definitely. I do a live Q&A session once a month, but actually we're going to ramp it up and do every 2 weeks a live Q&A session for an hour. So I'll go live through the course, and you can literally ask any question you want, and we'll literally work through it with you. Obviously, regular newsletters, regular blogs. I have also created, a couple of years ago, I created a how to create an ergonomics program within your business for free. So maybe I'll add it in the link for you guys so you can have a read through that.
Amazing. That's really, really generous. Thank you. That's so cool. That's just totally up my alley in terms of how to assist people and to prove to the wider community how awesome and knowledgeable you are. So thank you, Kirsty. That's brilliant. So okay, so obviously right now we're in this situation where we're in lockdown. We're gonna be in this space for some time. Then we'll be getting gradually or otherwise finding ourselves back in the place of work that we were used to working. Do you see that as an opportunity to reassess the way in which we're currently working in the modern workplace, open office space environments, all of that negative stuff in my mind? do you think this is an opportunity to really look hard at that from not only a social point of view, but actually from a health, bio health and well-being standpoint as well?
Oh, I think up until now, we've seen, even in my lifetime of work in the last 10 years, we've seen some changes. So, the rise of sit to stand desks, the rise of agile working, activity-based working. Of course, those have been quite significant changes, but I don't think we've seen anything like what we're seeing now. And I think this is really going to be a massive shift in how we work. I think what's going to happen is actually we're going to start to seriously think about people's well-being. And I know we've been thinking about people's well-being for the last couple of years, but I really think we're going to see a shift with that. I don't think we're going to go back to cubicle style working personally. I know some people have seen that trend start to occur a little bit in the UK, but personally, I think we're just maybe going to create more space between desks so that rather than sticking people together on one bank of desks, create more space between people and actually create micro workstations. So in my space here, can I make it really good for me? Can I add plants, better lighting, a better ergonomic setup, and then a meter away from me have my colleague who I can still interact with, but they're not as close to me, and I can feel like I'm not interrupting them as well. So yeah, I think we are going to see some change, more space, certainly. I think because of this home working situation, the fact that we've been able to, within 2 weeks, send a majority of people home and successfully, pretty much, I think it's going to open discussions around home working a bit more as well.
Yeah, I agree. For me, I work in a co-working office space, so there's several other businesses all working in the same space, which is really neat from a networking point of view. Fantastic from sharing clients, leads, all of that stuff. Amazing. But there is a part of me that thinks, gosh, like actually, although it's a bit of a nightmare working from home, with some adjustment, it actually might not be such a crazy idea in the long run. And I'm sure there must be a lot of other people thinking similar lines. And maybe this will fast track that evolution away from the traditional workplace to a more flexible work-life balance. Yeah, it's real interesting.
I think this is just going to prove to leadership, the leadership who maybe weren't so hot on home working or weren't so enamored by the idea of sending their employees home. I think those types of leadership roles will start to see, actually we can trust our employees. There is a lot of honesty there, and we have been able to see some productivity and good performance from people working from home. So why can't we introduce this into our actual business strategy going forward now? I don't think that will exclusively now keep people at home. I think we still need social interaction, and we need to go into the office and be with people, collaborate. But I think this does open up an opportunity to allow people to work from home without feeling bad about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's actually a really exciting future ahead for many as a result of this. And then I guess that probably possibly leads me to, do you see or forecast a need for us to be prepared to ask for more, or to ask for a change when we do return to our usual places of work?
Yeah, that's when you sent me that question, I was thinking that's quite a difficult question, I guess. I think what I want to achieve, or what I hope that businesses achieve in this period of time, is that they don't send people home now and don't help them with their work setups at home. Because if we don't help people at home, then naturally, as we come back to the office, we are going to see some major musculoskeletal issues. We just are. If, let's say, we're at home now for the next 8 weeks, 8 weeks is a long enough period of time for people to start getting musculoskeletal disorders, and we don't want that to happen. Obviously, unfortunately, it might happen to a few people, so we are going to have to demand better work setups when we go back to the office, and just to create a better setup at home. I think this gives employees an opportunity to not demand. I don't think we should ever demand things. I think we need to be reasonable about this. As you said very early on, workers have to take some responsibility. We can't expect our business. This is uncharted territory. We don't know what we're doing from one day to the next. So give everybody a bit of a break, be a bit more optimistic. Businesses are thinking about this. Just give us some time.
Yeah, I think that's a really great response. And yeah, it's often very easy to fall into the trap of going, well, it's everyone else's problem. What are you going to do for me? But yeah, at the end of the day, we are all ultimately responsible for ourselves. And also, on the positive side of that sentiment is the fact that right now there are so many of us proving to our employers and to our management that we're more than capable of working in flexible environments and still get the work done, regardless of the situations that we find ourselves in. So it's interesting stuff. Cool. So obviously things are a bit up in the air at the moment for all of us, but in terms of plans for the future for yourself and for your business, have you got any other kind of exciting things in the bubbling away in the background?
Good question. I think this has given me, so when I launched my online course, Poised People, a couple of months ago, that was really the first course in a selection of courses that I want to create for people. And so I guess this now gives me the opportunity, the time to start creating my next course. And my next course, I really want to delve into how we can help architects and designers design better workplaces, more productive workplaces, better performing workplaces. And I know that's already been done at the moment, but I don't think we're doing enough for the people and how people interact with that environment. So I hope that with the training that I can create and partner with some of my friends and colleagues in that environment, that we can create a course that really supports architecture and design and wider audiences as well, because this is a great opportunity to do that better.
Yeah, brilliant. I love that, because that's, I mean, it's one of those areas which is so critical from a health and safety point of view. Is textbook theory still, unfortunately, in lots of circumstances where when we do incident investigations, the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff stuff, it's almost always some of the root causes. It goes right back to the planning stages. It's like, this is like health and safety 101, and I'm sure it's from your perspective as well. When it comes to the design and build of premises, that a lot of the issues that the workers are now facing today could have been avoided if it had been
massively.
Yeah, so interesting. I love that. I think that will be incredibly successful. I'm definitely going to be doing my best to tell everyone about Poised People, because that sounds like a really awesome course. I think it's going to be really timely, clearly. Yeah, it's great. And in terms of, I've actually got a few ideas from more of a local point of view in terms of electronic checklists and bits and pieces like that. I know I've got a couple of solutions for the New Zealand market that can solve that. So there's a lot of synergies everywhere. It's great. It's very exciting.
Well, honestly, Matt, anything you need support with, just you know where I am. Just give me a shout, and I'd love to help you and the business and any of your team and companies that you're working with, because I think we need to help each other and help people do better and be better people when it comes to designing workplaces, designing environments so that people can flourish. I love the saying when, if it wasn't for the people in your business, you wouldn't have a business at all. So let's look after the people in the business.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's such a great saying. I love that. Gosh, yeah, this has been awesome. So, look, I mean, I'm gonna aim to wrap up fairly soonish, but is there anything on your mind, or is there any points that you would like to raise that we maybe haven't covered yet? Also, for those listening in, if they've got any questions, please feel free to fire them through this last wee bit.
I think maybe one of the last things to mention, so I think we focus a lot on actual workstation setup, and that's what we'll be doing at home. Where am I going to sit? Where's my table? How am I going to set up my laptop? And maybe what we're going to start to forget about is two things, is the amount of movement we do and our actual ambient environment. So how good is the lighting in my room? How good is the temperature? Is it too hot, too cold? That kind of thing. So I would really urge people, number one, to move. Honestly, guys, it doesn't matter how perfect your setup is if you do not move regularly. And when I say regularly, I honestly mean 2 to 3 times an hour. It has to be, because if you don't move, you are still going to be in discomfort. So that's number one. And number two, definitely make sure that the lighting in your room is good. If it's too dark, you're naturally going to move closer to the screen to see it because it's too dark. If it's too bright, you're going to get headaches and feel discomfort in those ways. So just manage that a little bit, close the blinds, open the blinds, depending on how that feels for you. And just check the temperature. Do you feel warm in the house, or do you feel cold? Check how that feels. And if you're feeling cold, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the ambient temperature. It could mean that you've just been sat for too long as well. So it's an opportunity to move more regularly.
Yeah, I'm definitely guilty of that. Yeah, I often come away from the desk and I've got really cold hands and cold feet. I'm like, oh my gosh, I really need to start moving.
Yeah, same.
That's awesome advice. Yeah, just sort of top of my head, I can't remember the name of the app, but I know there's lots of apps that will track your time at the desk and will give you a bing after 20 minutes to remind you to get up for 5 minutes and go, make a cup of tea or whatever.
There's actually a really cool free app. I mean, it doesn't track things. It doesn't obviously track how you're moving, but all it does is, it's called Stand Up, and you can set it so that it notifies you on your phone however many times you want it to stand up. So at least if you are engrossed focus on a piece of work on your laptop, your phone will ping every 20 minutes and at least reminds you to move.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think anything like that is always gonna be a beneficial thing, particularly with all the free apps and tools and bells and whistles that are out there. Cool. Someone's just sent through a kind of a bit of a thought, a bit of a question, just in regards to the proper ergonomic arrangement of sitting at a desk. Perhaps rather than going down into that rabbit hole, I can certainly put a couple of pictures of what good looks like. I'm right in thinking that the traditional 90 degrees set at your chair, that's kind of, we've moved on from that, right? That's kind of like, don't do that anymore. It's silly. Yeah,
we've definitely moved on from that. I think I caveat any good posture has to have a caveat, and that is that a good posture is only good for a certain period of time. Our bodies are designed to move. So, but I would say definitely a neutral posture. Really, a neutral posture is feet flat on the floor, hands in our lap, elbows by our side, shoulders down and relaxed, and us looking straight ahead. That's a good neutral posture. And just keep your back supported, but in a slightly reclined position so that you are opening up your hip flexors, your chest, and getting that oxygen and blood flow moving around.
Yeah, love it. That's such great advice. Thank you. That's really, really helpful. Cool. Well, unless anyone's got any final questions, I might just do a bit of a summary wrap up whilst we see if anyone does have any burning questions or burning thoughts. But I mean, from my perspective, I think what you've got to bring to the table is just, it's just so timely. And clearly you've been doing this for a long time now. 10 years worth of experience is you can just rattle this stuff off with ease, which is great. So in terms of if any of our listeners now or in the next few days or weeks ahead want to get in touch, is there a website or a good point of contact that they can find you at?
Yeah, so my business is the Travelling Ergonomist. So you can find me on my website, which is thetravellingergonomist.com, or you can find me, Kirsty Angra, on LinkedIn, which is probably where I spend most of my time. I'm also on all other social media. And then the new course is poisedpeople.com.
Yeah, too easy. That's brilliant. Thank you. Cool. Yeah, so Kirsty is a little bit like myself. Like, she's all over social media. Runs lots of really good stories and stuff. Well worth following. So if you guys are on LinkedIn, I definitely recommend following her on LinkedIn. Some really great articles and thought pieces coming out all the time. So
yeah, I have to apologize. You'll probably see my face quite regularly on LinkedIn in all different formats. So sorry about that, but hopefully the information is good.
Yeah, totally. Don't worry about that. And I think LinkedIn wouldn't let you get away with that unless you were putting out good content anyway. So clearly
That's
doing
true.
something right. That's cool. Awesome. Okay, well, look, I think we'll wrap up. I'll let everyone who is busy getting as much work as they can do this time of the night whilst the kids are asleep. I'll let them get back to it. But this has been a real pleasure, and I'd like to think that perhaps we can touch base maybe further down the road during this whole scenario, just to reflect on perhaps some learnings over the last few weeks or months, and and maybe look forward to what it's going to look like in the future.
Definitely, I would love to do that. I think definitely doing like a post COVID catch up would be amazing, you know, and obviously we catch up in between anyway, but I think after, just to see the transition and maybe what the future will look like. We still don't know, so it's all time will tell.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay,
Thanks,
well, cool.
Matt.
Yeah, well, look, thank you for joining us, Kirsty. It's been really good to see you, and we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.